Hi and welcome back. In this video, I wanted to tell you a bit about queues. And I just wanted to do that before the next video where we're going to be using one, just so you have a bit of an idea of what they're like and how you use them. So here's an example of what could be a queue, with a nice little animation there. And here's a more realistic example of a queue. Let's say you've got a queue of people to get into some sort of building. And of course, people are going to join the queue at the end, and they're going to leave the queue from the start. So this is a queue. You know how queues work already, particularly if you are in the United Kingdom, where we like to queue for everything. And it's really the same thing in programming. Let's say you've got this list here, and you can add an element at the end of the list. Like so, we've added gen to the end of the list. And normally we do this in a list with the append method. Now, what you didn't know is that there is a data structure, like a list, in which you can also remove an element. And that would be, for this structure, the pop left. So the structure here that I'm talking about is called a double-ended queue. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But for that double-ended queue, the pop left will remove the leftmost element. Append will do the same thing as for a list. And if you think right to left instead, if you sort of turn it around, then the ends are opposed, and you've got this list to begin with. You can append something on the left, and of course that would be called append left. And you can remove something from the end, and that's just called pop. So what you're seeing here is that you can add elements from either end, and you can remove elements from either end. So a queue where you can add or remove things from either side is called a dequeue, or actually it's commonly said as deck, which I think is very weird, or a double-ended queue. So there's a deck or a double-ended queue. If you can only add elements from one side and remove them from the other side, like a normal queue, that's called a queue. So you'll have both of these in programming. Python has something called a deck, a double-ended queue, and it also has something called a queue, and you can use those. Now, something else that's very similar to queues is this thing that we've got here. And this thing is called a stack. Because on a stack, you can remove things from the top, and you can add them back on the top. Notice how in a queue, you can add things from one end and remove them from the other, mimicking a real queue, like when you queue to go to the pharmacy or something. And in a stack, you add and you remove from the same end. So that it's like a stack of cards or a stack of coins. And these have different uses. Throughout the next few videos, we're going to look at some uses of the queue. We're not going to look at uses of a stack. I found that they're not all that useful in day-to-day programming. They can be useful in very limited scenarios. So we're not going to go into using stacks, but we're going to go into using queues in the very next video. So I'll see you there.